like you to kill it.
What are you talking about? Why should I why should I break that machine?
Just as an experiment. I tried it myself a few years ago and I found it instructive.
What did you learn?
Something about the meaning of life and death. Don't worry, the beast has no defenses that can harm you. Just don't crash into anything while you're chasing it around.
When do its stupid batteries run down?
In about half an hour, provided you keep him busy. There is an easier way to get it.
I'll take it.
Forget the hammer. Just pick it up.
Pick it up? Just like that?
Certainly. It only feels danger from its own kind. And in this case, it's the steel hammerhead. It's programmed to trust unarmed protoplasm. Now lay him on his back on the table. He'll be quite helpless. And then you can bash him at your leisure.
But it's...
Just a machine. Like these, its evolutionary predecessors. But unlike them, it senses its own doom and can cry out for help.
Turn it off.
Oh, you ruined the switch. Care to administer the death blow?
There might be 1 million neurons somewhere in my brain that are firing in some pattern where they all agree with each other. They're all reinforcing each other and saying, yes, that's good. Now that pattern might be the characteristic pattern that occurs whenever I see a book. And so this characteristic pattern means that I am seeing a book or thinking about the concept of book. Now with some other concept like table, that means a different set of neurons is all firing and reinforcing each other and cooperatively forming an organization of neurons that say table.
The most important cells in the brain are nerve cells, or neurons. Each neuron possesses a number of synapses, or entry ports, a cell body, and one axon, or output channel. The input and output are electrochemical flows of moving ions. In the cell body, a simple decision is made. If the sum of all the inputs exceeds a certain threshold, it fires a pulse of ions down the axon. These ions will eventually cross over into the entry ports of other neurons, thus causing them to make the same kind of decision. It is simple addition which rules the lowest level of the mind.
So now, how do you connect the tiny little cells with thinking? How does it...
Well,
what kind of model do you have for that?
on their own, those little cells are not thinking, obviously. They are their activity is very distant from thinking. In fact, the activity that takes place in any neuron in the brain is no different from the activity that takes place in a nerve cell in your finger. It's just that when you put them together and allow them to very intensely exchange information, then you allow these kinds of macroscopic states to exist. So in some models of artificial intelligence, the idea is to create a model, not necessarily for a neuron, but for a very small computational activity, and have that very small activity be able to cooperate with other very small activities and have them send messages back and forth. And out of this whole activity involving many small pieces, program will get a coherent large-scale behavior.
More concrete. I want to know more about how that works. How does that work in the brain? How does that work in a computer?
Yeah, this story of trying to fill in how the details work, how a unitary thing like consciousness can emerge out of millions, billions of little things happening. That's been one of my real interests over the years, because it is a mystery. I mean, you don't even have to think of neurons as the smallest elements. I mean, even when as a child I learned that I was made of atoms, that was a shocking thought, because it somehow reduced me to a vast collection of invisible little things, all of these little things were obeying the laws of physics. Where did that leave me any room to have any free will or to have any control? I was concerned about that. I remember, well, that is a problem. I like to think of the microscopic activity in a living being, but particularly in a brain, and through this analogy, which I call the cranium. It's a little pun in English because, of course, it's based on the word cranium for our skull, and there was a very famous brain researcher who wrote a sentence once in one of his papers. He said, "Who shoves whom around inside the cranium?" And his question, what he really meant was, are the laws of physics shoving around little tiny particles in such a way that there's no room left for free will or anything? Or are the things like desires and beliefs and hopes and ideas, are those kinds of things shoving around the electrons? Now, which way is the better way to think of it?